Hey guys, I'm currently raising money for the Bungie Foundation charity event, which is predominantly a Destiny 2 thing, but I do have a Minecraft related incentive for people who donate $25, where I'll dedicate a statue to each person who does so in my upcoming hardcore series where I play through the Dungeons and Taverns data pack. The link is in the description if you're interested, and enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome to my personal creative world, and today I want to go over with you guys 20 plus vanilla friendly mods that I use every single day. This isn't like one of those YouTube videos that just gets a bunch of different mods and just throws them in there because they're vanilla friendly. No, these are ones that I use every single day, and I get a lot of questions about things like my resource pack, shaders, and just generally what other mods I use, so that's what today's video is about. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is going to be my resource pack, which is a modified version of the Vanilla Tweaks resource pack. Now, the link to this will be in the description if you want the exact one that I'm using, but some of the highlights are like changing the netherite helmet back to the classic texture of what you basically see every other helmet look like, which is kind of funny because whenever it comes to the gold helmet, I actually have the texture changed to a crown. I'm a very big fan of the way that the crown looks, and whenever I was little, I always imagined the golden helmet being a crown anyways. Some of the other changes that I have in the Vanilla Tweaks pack is stuff like having no ash at the bottom of campfires, because I kind of like to build with these sometimes, and having the ash under them kind of makes it look a little bit ugly, so that's one of the main changes that I have. Some other small changes that I have are of course my crosshair. As you can see, it's a bit smaller than the vanilla one. I also am using the different bedrock texture because I don't know if you guys share the same opinion, but the current default texture for bedrock looks almost as ugly as the original netherite texture, and I think this one looks a lot better. Some of the other changes I have are stuff like 3D ladders, we have the 3D stone cutter, I have varied bookshelves so they look slightly different, 3D rails, 3D lily pads, and 3D iron bars. That's not all the changes, but some of the main ones that I feel like I can't live without. Next up, I want to talk about my shader pack. Now, I get tons of questions about what shader pack I use, and this is complementary shaders. However, this is a much older version of complementary shaders because, as you'll see, it's just called complementary shaders, and nowadays the creator of the shader pack has complementary shaders Unbound and complementary shaders Reimagined, and I'm not sure if you can get your hands on the OG version like I currently have. I will have my settings down in the description for all of the changes that I made to this, but from what I've seen, complementary Reimagined is the closest that you can get to what I'm currently using. You'll just have to make a few modifications to it. Moving on, the next mod I want to talk about, or mainly a resource pack, is of course fresh animations. Now, fresh animations is also going to come alongside two other things, because if you are using sodium like I am instead of Optifine, because well, Optifine kind of sucks nowadays, you are also going to need entity model features and entity texture features if you want this to run on something like sodium. And in my opinion, this makes the game just seem so much more alive. It's one of those things that I truly feel like I can't play the game without, because it just makes everything look so much nicer whenever the mobs feel alive and they feel less like just walking texture blocks. Now, moving on, the next mod I want to talk about is called 3D skin layers. Take a look at my current skin. Do you kind of see how there's a few different holes in my hair and it looks really thin? Well, if I enable this mod really quick, you'll see that my hair looks actually full. It looks kind of like hair you would see on a real person instead of just a really thin layer with some holes in it. And that is what 3D skin layers does. This is a very small mod, but I feel like it makes my skin look so much better than it normally does by default, so I like having it around. The next mod I want to talk about is called Better F3. If you take a look at the top left, you can see what my F3 menu looks like, and it basically has all of the information that I could possibly want. You can see things like the current day ticks, days played, slime chunks, how many monsters there are, creatures, axolotl, water creatures, all that kind of stuff, as well as the coordinates, FPS, everything in between. And a lot of this information I have color coded. You can customize this basically down to the very last detail, and I think Better F3, at least for me, is a must to get the specific information that I want without needing to search around too much. Moving on to something that I think you guys have probably already seen, but you maybe have not noticed, is called blur. If you notice, whenever I open up this inner chest, you'll see everything else on my screen blur, and the main thing that is of focus is, of course, the inner chest inventory. I don't know why I initially installed this, but I feel like it just looks so much better, and I feel like it should be like this by default. Maybe it is in Bedrock Edition. I can't really remember. I haven't played that version in a while, but I feel like this just looks right to me, and I really like it. Moving a few hundred blocks away, we are now in a cherry grove biome, and one thing that you'll notice about the cherry grove is, of course, the fact that leaves fall, and they might be falling a little bit more than usual right now, and that is because I am using the falling leaves mod. And basically, this brings the particle effects of falling leaves over to any kind of tree in the game. Which, come on, oak tree, don't disappoint me here. You're making me... Oh, you see it? There's a leaf. Yeah, see, I wasn't lying. It's just not as much because the cherry groves kind of do it intrinsically, and this is just part of the mod. Now, this is something that you can change. You can change how many particles there are and how often they spawn and stuff like that. But I feel like stuff that Minecraft absolutely needs is the little things like this that kind of bring the atmosphere to the game. I really like small stuff like this, and it is just the perfect addition to the game because, well, you only have one biome really that does it right now. Now, while on the topic of biomes doing things that other biomes don't do, here we are in the basalt. I fell into lava. Here we are in the basalt delta, and one thing that you'll notice, and one thing that I noticed as soon as I started playing the Nether update, is the fact that the atmosphere in this biome is insane. The particle effects that go through the basalt deltas are just absolutely unmatched, and I really wish Minecraft would add this to more aspects of the game. And fortunately for you, this mod does that. Back in the overworld and taking a dip into the caves, you will notice that these caves have a very similar effect to the basalt deltas, and that is because I'm using the cave dust mod. I just was really in love with what Mojang did to the basalt deltas, and I just loved the effect that it gave off, and I'd like to see it more often. And cave dust, I mean, it just makes sense, right? It just seems like something that you would see in Minecraft by default. And this again is something that you can customize. You can get way more cave dust than what you currently see on screen, but I don't like it to be too much of a distraction, so I keep it to a minimum, and it just really allows for the atmosphere to shine through whenever you're down here. Now, moving on to the next mod, I am going to absolutely blow your guys' minds. You guys are not going to know what to think whenever I show you what this next mod does. I'm going to go into this water right here. I'm going to mine out some sand and put down some soul sand. And what you guys are going to see is bubbles that are popping. Yes, I know, absolutely game changing. This mod is called Make Bubbles Pop, and you'll never guess what it does. It makes bubbles pop. I don't know why bubbles don't pop currently, and it's a question that apparently this mod maker, wanted an answer to, so he made a mod about it, and, I really like it. I don't know what I would do without it. Now, this next mod is something that is way, way, way more important than what we were just talking about, and this mod is going to be called Mouse Tweaks. Now, this is kind of like an inventory management thing. There's only one real reason that I use this mod. So, you guys know how you can hold shift and then you can left click and you can move stuff into your inventory, right? Well, the main reason that I use this mod is so I can do that. That was just me holding left click once and just dragging the mouse over it while holding shift. And this just makes inventory management just so much easier. I don't know what I would do without this. It just makes moving things around that much better. And of course, while on the topic of inventory related stuff, you can't talk about inventory related stuff without having the mod known as, well, give me 1 second, without having the mod known as Shulker tooltips. And this is basically what it says and what it shows. Instead of needing to place down a shulker box to see what's inside of it, you can just simply highlight it. You could also hold left alt so you can kind of shrink it down. Yeah, this is just absolutely needed as far as inventory stuff is concerned, especially if you have a lot of shulker boxes in the late game. And I feel like most people probably already use this, but I figured I'd mention it. Now, going from something that is fairly important to something that doesn't matter at all, this next one is called Not Enough Animations, and as you'll see, it just gives some minor animations to you, the player. Now, this really isn't that important to many players out there. As a YouTuber, I use replay mod from time to time, and having the extra animations while looking at myself through the theater mode is kind of nice for a little bit of a cinematic effect. Is there a ladder in here? Well, I guess that'll do. One of the other animations that you guys can see is, of course, somebody climbing a ladder. Although this is really jank because there's only one ladder in here. But there's multiple different kinds of animations that you can see. But one of the biggest reasons for me to get this is because I used to play a lot of console edition Minecraft. And one of the things in the console edition was the fact that you brought your hand up whenever you ate food. Why this isn't in the Java edition is so weird to me. Like, even as a child, I was always so confused why that wasn't a thing, and this mod fixes that, as well as adds a bunch of other stuff. Now, the next mod that I want to talk about is going back to something that really doesn't matter all that much, and this mod is called Particle Rain, and it basically changes the way that the base rain looks, as well as making it somewhat customizable. And this isn't really a huge thing for me, I'm going to be honest, but it's kind of nice. I like the way that particle rain looks compared to the default rain, and it's just one of those small things, kind of like the cave dust and whatnot, that just kind of add up and make me enjoy the atmosphere a bit more. Segueing on over to something that you'll notice a little bit more, I'm going to kill this cow really quick. And this next mod is called the Pickup Notifier. As you guys can see in the bottom right corner, if I drop any kind of item and I pick them up, it basically tells me what I just picked up, because I feel like the game doesn't really do that good of a job about letting you know what you just picked up. And having a little pickup notifier at the bottom right is kind of nice, and you can even see the exact amount of XP orbs that you pick up too. It's pretty nice. Next, I want to talk about visuality, which is probably something that you've already seen thus far, but basically visuality just adds these tiny little details into the game at various little intervals. As you can see right there, you can see a little bit of shine on that amethyst crystal right there, and this applies to a few other things in the game. If I equip some gold armor, you'll see I have the exact same thing happen. It also happens with diamond armor, and it even happens with ores that you might be finding throughout the caves. That obviously isn't the only thing that it does. If I pull up a slime spawn egg and spawn a few of these guys, you'll see that they leave a little bit of slime left behind after they jump. If I spawn in a skeleton really quick, which I should probably spawn him inside of here so he doesn't burn up, you'll see that whenever I punch him, bones actually come out. If I go up to this guy right here, this villager, and I punch him, you'll see that, well, some emeralds fly out. So it's just, again, one of those little atmospheric things that I like. And yeah, it doesn't really make that much of a difference in your day-to-day, but it is still kind of neat. The next thing I want to talk about is, again, something you guys have probably seen a bunch of already, but you just haven't noticed it. And that is something called Tiny Item Animation. Do you see whenever I click on these boots, they have like a little bit of an animation to them where they just kind of like jump out of my inventory and onto my mouse? That's basically the mod. It's something that you may have noticed, something you may have not noticed. Many of these mods, again, are really tiny things, but to me, they all add up to make my experience a little bit better, and this is just one of those silly ones that I really like. Moving on to something a little bit more important, though, and this is an absolute must. That is Zoomify. As you can see, I just pressed my C key and I zoomed in, and if I use my mouse wheel, I can zoom in even more, and you can get so close that you can see the animation on that lantern from all the way back here. So it's basically a necessity. I know a lot of people who used to use Optifine back in the day got used to zoom mods, myself included, but now with everybody switching over to Sodium, myself included, Zoomify is basically what the Optifine zoom mod is, but much, much better. So thus far, we've talked about my resource pack, we've talked about my shaders, we've talked about a bunch of different mods. So now let's talk about a few data packs, with the first data pack being called All Mob Heads. And this has got to be probably my favorite data pack in the entire game. If we go to the advancements here, you can see every single mob head in the game. Now it is a little bit laggy because there are just a lot of things here, but this is kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like an extra objective that the data pack gives you while keeping the game feeling as vanilla as possible. Now, it doesn't change any of the vanilla mob heads. As you can see right here, all of these are still obtained in their normal ways, with some of them being through a Char's Creeper explosion. But every other mob in the game has a random chance to drop its head. It'll tell you the base rate plus how much you get per looting enchantment that you have. And one of my favorite things about this mod pack, or about this data pack, is the fact that the Warden will now give you a proper reward. Because I know that whenever this update first came out and the Warden first got introduced and, you know, people started killing him, realizing that he literally dropped nothing. Well, this data pack allows you to get his head as a trophy, kind of similarly to the fact of the Ender Dragon head, even though traditionally you would find those in the floating ships on the end. And so just to show you guys really quick, just an example, because I haven't gotten the Warden head on this world yet, I'm gonna go ahead and throw the Warden into this water right here and just go to town. And if you guys just give me a little bit, I'll eventually come back with his head. Okay, that took absolutely forever, but as you'll see, the Warden drops his normal quote unquote reward, the Skulk Catalyst that nobody cares about. But more importantly, we get the Warden's head. And as you can see in the top right corner, you actually get an achievement for this, or an advancement. And of course, we can place this down and use this however we want, which I think is really neat. And the fact that literally every mob in the game gets it is really cool. And another thing that you'll actually get via this data pack is trophies, because I believe, if I remember correctly, I ended up making a tiny little trophy room in this area. Yeah, so as you'll see, this is one of every single parrot head in the game, and if you get every single one of the parrot heads, you will then be given a trophy, which is the golden parrot head, and it'll just spawn in your inventory once you get the final advancement. And I think the small stuff like that is pretty neat. If we scroll all the way back up, you'll see that I got all the parrot heads, and once I unlocked this advancement right here, it gave me a gold parrot head, which is kind of cool. So if you're ever playing in survival, you know, you can make your little trophy rooms for it and stuff, and it's kind of reminiscent of what the banners are in Terraria, where you can just get them as random drops, and it's kind of like a little mini trophy, you know? Except unlike banners, these heads don't really do anything in Minecraft, but you can wear them if you want to, and you can even put them on armor stands too. Now moving on to a data pack that is very similar to the one that we just talked about, and one that I actually made a YouTube short on, we have something called Wandering Trades. And what this basically does, it allows the Wandering Trader to be a bit more useful than he normally is, because for most players he isn't. And it basically allows you to trade one block plus one emerald for a mini version of the block. And again, this functions very similarly to the one that we just talked about, where these are essentially just reskinned player heads. But I really like this data pack, because as you guys may have seen earlier, I have a little trophy room over here that I made, and we have the little mini versions of the gold blocks, the diamond blocks, and the emerald blocks. Over here, I even made this little cart with the horse, and you can see right here we have some gold nuggets, as well as over here a TNT blast mine and little mini versions of TNT that even if I were to get stuff like a redstone torch, for example, I can't set these off because, well, these aren't actual TNT blocks and can be used just for decoration. So the Wandering Trades data pack, just like the All Mob Heads data pack, they're both very similar, but they're both an absolute must in my opinion, because at least with this one, you can actually use these for your building projects. Now, the next data pack that I want to talk about is called Ships. And basically what this data pack does is it gives the pillagers boat AI and allows them to kind of go around in little mini patrols in boats around the ocean. And it also allows for some ships to appear generated in the ocean, which I feel is a definite, I don't know, it just feels like something that should have been in the game already, because we have sunken ships, and these are just non-sunken versions, and they are sailed by the pillagers. And as you can see, if I were to get on here, I can actually go down here, and we can find loot. And a lot of this loot can, of course, be things like treasure maps. We can go over here and we can find just their food and supplies and some of the stuff that they've gotten while they've been sailing. And I think that this would be a really cool thing to come across in survival. Now, what I will say is it does kind of tank your FPS just a little bit, as the creator of the data pack said, because the pillager boat AI is kind of experimental, but I still think that it's really neat. And the fact that you can find these at random are pretty exciting. Now, the last data pack I want to talk about is actually one that I dedicated an entire video to, and that is called Dungeons and Taverns. And basically what this data pack does is it adds a bunch of vanilla-friendly structures randomly generated throughout the game for you to find. Now, what we're looking at right now is called the Witch Villa, and this is essentially the pillager mansion version of the witch kind of side of the game. And it basically just functions as a very rare structure similar to the Pillager Mansion, but with witches inside. And you can see a bunch of different stuff take place here, and a bunch of different things that you can find. I'm kind of just going to leave it at that, but if I go ahead and pull up the locate command here, this is what all of what this data pack adds to the game. There are just a ton of randomly generated structures, a lot of which are super rare to come across, and it just kind of makes exploring throughout the game much more enjoyable, or maybe not more enjoyable, but more exciting, you know what I mean? And with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for me today. Those are 20 plus vanilla friendly mods slash resource packs slash shaders slash data packs that I use on a daily basis. And I kind of made this video just so I can send people to it whenever I get questions in my comment section. So yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. If I ever do end up installing more vanilla friendly mods, which I probably most definitely will in the future, I will probably eventually make a part 2 to this video. But as it stands, these are all of the vanilla friendly mods that I currently use in the game right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time.